we are gonna discuss about the classification of living things. So let's get started. Firstly, so what is the classification of living things? Classification of living things is a way of sorting and grouping living things into certain groups and units based on their characteristics. However, basically most of them is grouping by the similarities that they have. Product classification must have a meaning or make sense for everything. The first subtopic about classification of living things is the classification process itself. All the living things are grouped based on similarities and also differences that they have. Artificial classification is based on morphological characteristics that easily can be seen by naked eyes. The second is classification of their natural systems. It based on the morphological, anatomical, and also physiological features. And the third is phylogenetic classification. It's about morphological, anatomical, and physiological features, also evolutionary history or history of an organism. So why we have to classify all the living things? What is the purpose of classification of living things? Here is some purpose why we have to classify the living things. First, it will describe the characteristic of living things and to distinguish each type so that it's easily to know. The second is classifying living things based on their characteristic. The third is know the kinship relationship between all the living things. And the fourth, we can know the evolution of living things on the basis of their kinship. And this is the basic classification of living things. 1. It based on the body size. 2nd, it based on the environment where they live. The third is based on the benefits that they can give to their environment. The fourth is it based on the type of the food. You might heard about taxonomic stages. Basically, taxonomic stages consists of 3, which are identification. It is characterizing of organisms. Second is classification, which is the arrangement of organism in taxon, and the nomenclature. It based on the binomial nomenclature. This is how the taxonomy goes. From the greatest of organism or broad to the least of organism or specific. Start from domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So we have talked about taxonomic. What is taxonomic itself? It is derived from Greek, which is taxon, means group or unit, and nomos is law. So, taxonomy is a branch of biology whose job is to carry out the identification of all the living things, both now and those that have existed before us. This is the order of taxon levels from the highest to the lowest. Taxon level for PLANTAE is regnum, division, classis, ordo, familia, genus, and species. Taxon level for ANIMALIA is slightly different from the PLANTAE. It starts from the kingdom, phylum, classis, ordo, familia, genus, and species. The differences is located at kingdom and the phylum for the Animalia. And for the taxon level is bird or kingdom, and then division or phylum, class, nation, suku, clan, type. And the example of classification is Animalia, Chordata, Mammal, Primata, Hominidae, Pongo, and Pongo pygmaeus, or we know as orang utan Kalimantan. Before, you have learned about the classification. So who actually found the classification system? At 1707 till 1778, Carolus Linnaeus invented the classification system. He revealed three things. One is the natural system classification. It based on morphology, anatomy, and physiology. Two, the classification of phylogeny systems, which based on the evolutionary history. Three, its artificial classification system, based on morphology that is easily observable. This is the example how the taxon order goes for the animal. For example, this is leopard taxon rank, or Panthera pardus. The kingdom is Animalia. The phylum is Chordata. The class is mammals. The order is carnivore. The family is Felidae, and the genus is Panthera, and the species it's Panthera pardus. So it goes from the broad until the specific things. Next, we will discuss about the scientific name of life. The naming system approved by the worldwide taxonomies is named as binomial nomenclature. Caspar Bauhin in his book, which titled Pinox Theory Botanici, although it has applied a double name system for plants, it is Linnaeus who is considered the creator of a dual system because he consistently applies it in his book Species Plantarum. In scientific name of living things, there are 6 rules how to write the name of species based on the binomial nomenclature. The first one, each name consists of 2 words. For example, Durio zibatinus, or we know as durian. The second rule, the first word is the surname or genus, while the second word designates for species. So Durio is genus, and then Zibetinus is species. The third rule is the first letter in the first word is written in uppercase, and the first letter in the second word is written in lowercase. As you can see for our example, Durio, the D is written in uppercase and Zibetinus is written in the lowercase. The fourth rule, both words must be italic or underlined because it's classified as the Greek. And the fifth rule is if the name of an animal or plant is more than 2 words, then the second word and so on are put together or written with a coupling sign. For example, we have Hibiscus rosa sinensis. So it also consists of 2. However, the second word it consists of 2 phrases. And the sixth rule in plants, it may not be a tautonym, that is a name that has 2 words that are exactly the same or almost the same. For example, Linaria, Linaria. This rule doesn't apply to naming for animals. For example, there is Pangasius or catfish jumbo. Phylogenetic trees reflects the hierarchical classification of taxonomic groups nested within more inclusive groups. You can see as this diagram. And this is the sixth kingdom classification system mainly used by worldwide. There are PLANTAE, ANIMALIA, Fungi, Eubacter, Archaebacter, and then Proteus. Firstly, the classification is only from Animalia and PLANTAE. However, after invention of the light microscope, the classification became three. It were Proteus, Animalia, and also PLANTAE. The second, with the discovery of an electron microscope again, it can be used to see the structure in living cells. Then, the classification divided into four kingdoms. The third, the microscope can see living things whose cells do not have a core membrane, or prokaryotes, known as bacteria. It is grouped in the kingdom as Monera. The fourth, we can say that Animalia, PLANTAE, Proteus, including living things that have a core membrane or eukaryotes. The fifth classification of four kingdoms that will be is Monera, Animalia, PLANTAE, and Proteus. And the last development is classification of five kingdoms that we have until nowadays. There are Fungi, Monera, Animalia, PLANTAE, and Proteus. Kingdom Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. Microscopic group of living things, single cell is prokaryotes known as bacteria. Some are pathogenic and some are beneficials. This is the example of pathogenic bacteria, which is known as Salmonella typhi, or bacteria that lead to typhus. The example for beneficial bacteria is decomposer, which break down organic compounds into elements such as carbon, phosphorus, nitrogen, etc. The example is Lactobacillus sp to make yogurt, and then rennet to make cheese. Kingdom Protista. One or many cells and eukaryotes. The cells do not form actual tissue. Some are useful and some also harmful. Protists are grouped into two, plant-like called algae, and the second is animal-like called protozoa. The example for pathogen Protista is Plasmodium or malaria group of protozoa. And the beneficial one is Chlorella green algae. It is nutrition supplement food, and diatom algae, which coring agent and cement mixture. Move on to the next kingdom, which is Kingdom Fungi. Groups of eukaryotes that have cell walls and no chlorophyll. Some are single cell or unicellular, are called yeast. However, some also multicellular or like traits called hyphae. The function of hyphae is to absorb nutrients from the substrate on which the fungus grows. Hyphae will grow and branch off to form a fabric called mycelium. Then, mycelium will grow up to form a fruit body that can be eaten by humans. The role of fungi is as decomposer is the same as bacteria. The example of useful fungi is Saccharomyces cerevisiae or bread yeast. Another example is for mushroom and then penicillin antibiotics. The example for harmful fungi are parasites, which is Rhizopus stolonifer, that cause a stale food on bread, and then Amanita fanterina, it poisonous mushroom. Kingdom Plantae. Maybe you are more familiar than the other kingdom. It is multi-celled, cell-walled eukaryotes, chlorophyll, useful as ornamental plants, food, boards, clothing as producer. It's grouped into non-vascular plants, such as mosses, and vascular plants. Vascular plants are further divided into two: plants with no seed, or ferns, and seed plants or open seeds, or called gymnosperms, mean seeds not protected by the fruit leaf. For example is pine sp melinjo, which the Greek name is Gnetum gnemo, and the covered seeds, or known as angiosperm. It means that the seeds are protected by fruit leaves, also called plants flowering. For example, orange, which is the Greek name is Citrus sp, and so on. This is the kingdom that we know the most, which is Kingdom Animalia. They are eukaryotes, which multi-cell, not cell-walled, and non-chlorophyllic, useful as a food source. Based on the presence or absence of the spine, grouped into vertebrate groups and invertebrate groups. Kingdom Animalia itself consists of many groups, such as chondrites or cartilaginous fish, which has characteristics like breathing with gills, scaly, laying eggs, or they're composed of cartilage, for example, sharks and stingrays. And the other is hard-bone fish and amphibia. Another division are reptiles, apes, and mammals. After we discuss about the vertebrate, now move on to the invertebrate group. It is including several phyla. There are 8 main phyla as follows. The first is Porifera, then Colenterata, then Platyhelminthes, also Nemathelminthes. You can see the example of each phyla as depicted in the figure. The other 4 phyla are Annelida, Mollusca, Arthropods, and the last is Echinoderms. As you can see, they are divided based on their differences, and it's clearly seen from the picture itself. And we have reached our summary of this discussion. There are 5 kingdom classification systems, which consist of Monera, Protista, Fungi, PLANTAE, and Animalia. You have to know each of the kingdom characteristic, therefore you can distinguish each of the kingdom easily. And this is for the 4 kingdom classification system. It only consists of 4, which are Monera, Fungi, PLANTAE, and Animalia. Then, for the 4 kingdom classification system, it was coined by Robert Whittaker in 1959. This classification is based on the discovery of the cell nucleus. He saw living things whose cell nuclei did not have a membrane, or called as prokaryotes, for example, bacteria and blue-green algae. The first is kingdom Monera, which consists of bacteria and blue algae. It is characterized by a cell nucleus is not sheeted or prokaryotes, and the body is unicellular or multicellular. And the next is fungi, kingdom fungi. What can be classified as fungi? All kinds of mushroom, we classified them as fungi. The next is kingdom PLANTAE, which consists of various kinds of plants, which are divided into three: the bryophyta, pteridophyta, and spermatophyta. And lastly, the kingdom Animalia, which divided into 9, which are Porifera, Coelenterata, Platyhelminthes, Nemahelminthes, Annelida, Mollusca, Arthropoda, Echinoderm, and Chordata. The next is 3 kingdom classification system, which only consists of Monera, PLANTAE, and Animalia. This classification system is invented by Ernest Haeckel in German at 1866. The first is kingdom Monera. It is a kingdom consists of bacteria and blue algae. It is characterized by a cell nucleus which is not sheeted or prokaryotes, and their body are unicellular or multicellular. The second is kingdom PLANTAE, consists of various kinds of plants. As you can see, there are 4, and fungi is classified as the PLANTAE, and the rest are the same like the previous kingdom classification system. For kingdom Animalia, basically is the same as the previous kingdom classification system. And then it goes more specific to kingdom classification system, which only consists of 2, PLANTAE and Animalia. This kingdom classification system was found by Aristotle, an expert from the Greece. He said that PLANTAE consists of various kinds of plants. As you can see, bacteria and algae, also fungi, classified as the PLANTAE, and the rest are the same as the previous kingdom classification system. And for the kingdom Animalia, basically it's also similar with the previous one. So next we will talk about determination key. What is the purpose of determination key? 1. It used to identify the basics that can be used in classification. 2. To conduct a dichotomous classification. 3. To identify patterns of similarities and differences in a group of classification results based on taxon. 4. Make a determination key based on the results of the dichotomous classification. After we know the purpose of determination key, so how we can conduct determination key? There are some steps of determination key. 1 is determine 10 plants to be used as observation material or object. 2. Classify based on similar characteristics. 3. Doing the separation step by step continuously until no longer able to make a smaller groups. The 4 is nothing result of the separation of grouping in the form or sim. This is one example for Invertebrate phyla Dichotomous Keys, and the other is sim or Dichotomous Keys of Vertebrate Classes. And for this one is the Dichotomous Keys for plants. How's the discussion about classification of living things? Is it good? I hope you understand all the things that we have discussed before, and now it's time for exercise. So you have to make a key of determination for 3 things. There are 3 figures, which are turf, turmeric, and melinjo. And the explanation will be further explained later on. That's all our discussion today. Hope you understand and you can do the exercise well. See you everyone!